Welcome back, everyone. It's April. Today we're going to talk about cruise nursing. Imagine waking up not to an alarm, not to the beep of machines, but to the sound of waves and the sight of sunshine. You're in a new country, and that's because today you're clocked in as a nurse on a cruise ship. There's no commute, no parking garages to deal with, and your commute, 30 seconds. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Today I want to be breaking down one of the most underestimated and maybe under-considered jobs, one that I've always kind of thought might be a lot of fun, and that's being a nurse on a cruise ship. Before you think that this could be too good, it is important to know that there are some serious pros and cons, and I'll go over that today and leave you with some thoughts to ponder and some places to go to get more information if you think this might be something that interests you. This is much more than just dealing with people who are on their cruise ship for the first time and they're dealing with seasickness. You're also going to deal with a decent amount of dehydration because people are going to imbibe a lot more. You know, we're away from home, we're not having to drive, so you're going to have a lot of that. There's also a lot of people that go on these cruises, a lot of chronic conditions you may be asked to manage. There's a certain amount of pre-boarding checks that you may be asked to do, just wellness exams for the crew. That way, maybe vaccinations and just basic exams to be sure that the crew's all healthy, ready to go. There's also a certain amount of heart attacks you may deal with, people having strokes, and other amounts of trauma that can happen while people are on a cruise ship. You know, things get slippery, a whole variety of challenges that you could encounter. It's kind of like an urgent care or emergency room on the sea. So a lot of days might be just totally boring. They're just nice and easy. But, you know, if you are an emergency nurse or an ICU nurse, which are the two that are the most appropriate for this area, that's kind of what you're used to. It's really important that you are able to have really good communication skills, that you're able to work independently, and need to have an RN degree. Most cruise lines really want that BSN, so if you have that or considering upgrading, it always looks better to have that BSN. Obviously, they're going to want BLS and ACLS as a minimum so far as extra certifications, but having your PALS and trauma certifications also extras that look good when you're trying to get this kind of a job. Being able to stay calm during emergencies also critical. And if you're thinking, I have the certification and skills, I don't know if this would work for me, start thinking about lifestyle. So this is where things get interesting. And I have included in the bottom of this video a video from an actual person who is a cruise ship crew regular, not a nurse, but another cruise ship regular, to kind of give you a little more in depth of what life as a crew member on a cruise ship would be like. So you don't just work on a cruise ship. You also, different cruise lines have different perks that they give. Some pay for all of your room and board. Some pay for part of room and board. Some of them you can interact with some of the guests and use maybe some of the nicer guest facilities. Some like the nursing and other staff to stay separate from the guest staff. Some nurses choose to use this kind of a contract work as just kind of a break from whatever kind of work they're doing in their regular life. So they're 3 to 6 month contracts mostly, so far as, and they like to pay off debt. So you don't get a whole bunch of money overnight. Obviously, you're not doing it to get rich in 50 minutes. So the amount of pay varies by cruise line, by what position you have within the medical staffing, if you're a lead nurse or you're one of the main staff nurses, and which actual cruise line you're sailing on. So it looks like ranges go from $4,000 a month to $8,000 a month for some cruise ships, up to a total of $135,000 annually for probably the upper level cruise ships. But again, where you're not having to pay for all of your living expenses, take that into consideration, because you're also getting to travel the world, and there's going to be some times when you'll be able to leave the ship and go into port and experience life at a much less expensive amount than you would have had to had you tried to do it your own on your own dime. So sounds great so far, but for the part that nobody glamorizes, you're going to be away from your family for a few months, and there's limited space and privacy. Some of the rooms are 2 beds in a room. They do tend to be pretty cramped. You don't get to leave the space entirely when you're off. Sometimes you're on call for long periods of time during your contract. So you'd have to go over all of that with the specific cruise line and clarify that in your contract, obviously, prior to signing. I would say, do you know anyone that is already accepted for this particular cruise, or someone that's worked with your line before that you could talk to, so I could get an extra feel for how this might be for me? I would do that myself because I've never done this before, and it would probably make me feel a little more comfortable. For some people, not being able to fully break away from the area where they work and where they could be called back at any point might be a real deal breaker, and that's just not something they're okay with. And really, in any of the jobs I'm going to present, that's critical to know, and that's okay. We just have to know what we're okay with, what we're not okay with, and then just keep going, because that's how we find out where we belong, and that might be where we belong permanently or where we belong today. So now it's time to think, is this really a viable career area for you? Finally, this would be potentially a good career for you and would make sense if, especially you're early in your career and you don't have a lot of commitments that would be challenging your ability to commit, and you want a varied experience. If you're really focused on paying debt down and you want to get yourself stuck somewhere where you may not be able to make as many purchases, there's definitely been times in my life when that might have been a very handy thing to be financially focused in that manner. And if you're curious and adaptable and want to see the world and get a really amazing change. So if the idea of using your RN license to see the world and experience all there is out there, then please apply to cruise lines and agencies, get your onboarding done. I'll try to add a couple of links to a couple of cruise lines in the comments so that you can reach out to them directly. I'm going to try to get an attachment also put into the links in the comments for a free guided meditation done by my friend Rebecca. Again, working on that good mental health care that we all need to work on as nurses. And also a link to a program that I've used for my own back health. As I said, I've been a nurse for 20 years, and it's been a really hard road trying to keep my back health and keep the back pain under control. And this has helped me. So it might help you too. So anyway, thank you again, friends. See you in the next video, and thanks for stopping by. Please like, share, and subscribe. I hope to bring these videos and hope to nurses everywhere. Thank you. Have a good day.